All right. Thank you for joining us, those of you who have been able to join for this 15th of April 2026 edition of the Werewolf Technical Steering Committee meeting. As you can kind of tell from our bolding of the attendees list, we've got kind of a light crowd today. Two of our Technical Steering Committee members, Christian and Timothy, are not able to make it today. So we'll go over what we can, but it might be a listening session today in case any of our other attendees have things that they want to bring or bring up. But we'll talk about, well, Rose, if you have anything to say about Perk, talk about the current status of the 4.7 release, and then maybe I'll just speak briefly, although I won't go into too much detail because I'll want more of the TSC to be present for it, about some conversations that we've been having at CIQ about what a potential Werewolf V5 would look like. So that's what I've got on the agenda for now. But is there anything that anyone would like to add to the agenda for discussion? All right. Hearing nothing, I will proceed. Rose, is there anything that we should be thinking about or talking about with regard to a perk buff or anything else with conference attendance or presence that we should keep in mind?
No, when is the ISC one that you're going to?
That is in June. So yes, there's an open HPC BOF there that I'll be participating in, and then a CIQ presence besides. Um, but yeah, I was just thinking about that before the meeting. I need to book flights for that probably. I
Okay,
have hotel, but not flights.
and what about RMAC? I know that you're
So
going, but I
there's
didn't know.
nothing. CIQ will be there, and we
Mhm.
will of course be talking about Werewolf for people who want to know. There's no Werewolf BOF or anything. I haven't looked at the agenda to see if anyone else is talking about Werewolf, but the only presentation we have scheduled is a fuzzball one, so
Mm.
nothing specific for Werewolf.
Okay, great. I don't have any updates about Perk. We haven't gotten the response yet, but you can see here that April 27th. So in the next,
Yep,
whatever, little
awesome.
bit. Yep. Thank you.
Okay, so 4.7 is making progress, but still not out. So the biggest changes since, well, last time probably, is that there's this PR from me for. Oh, this no, that's probably just that I haven't refreshed it. Let's see. Yes, so this PR for removing single overlay support and adding the file server. I'm done reviewing that, so I've kicked it back over to Timothy, and he'll review it when he can. I'm not surprised he hasn't done it yet. It's I just kicked it back over to him yesterday, but that should be well on its way. And then this isn't the right place to be looking at this. I should look at this place, and then it will filter down appropriately. And then there's this unset command that I've been working on. I am doing a final code review right now to make sure that it all makes sense before I pass it back over to Christian, who gave me some great feedback last time. Um, Aside from that, there is um, a PR that got merged last night, adding a static variant to for Dracut booting. Shane, I see and remembered that this was your pull request. Can you maybe just, if you're willing, talk about this for anyone else on the call that might be interested in it?
Yeah, so it's probably not going to see use, I think, in most configurations. I only came across this workaround for the issue that I've noted, which isn't really a werewolf issue. It's more of a behavioral issue with how the um, uh, Pixie Boot ROM on InfiniBand adapters works, um, where when it initially makes its DHCP request, it uses the 48-bit form of the GUID of the adapter as the identifier. Um, and then later on, when something like Network Manager during Dracket makes the DHCP um, request, it uses the 64-bit one. So to the DHCP server, it's a different system. And at least with DNS mask, you can't, I don't think you can configure a host with two different identifiers.
Hmm.
I think you can in DHCPD, but that's not what I use. So
Yeah.
to work around that entire thing, This instead adds the option to use static IP assignment based off of the node's configuration in Werewolf.
Great. I have flagged this for myself. I had wanted to look over it and hadn't gotten to it, so I appreciate Christian looking at it and getting it merged. I wanted to see if there might be a way to trigger this behavior rather than um, a separate method in the template, but mostly just because I'm afraid of adding another name that may or may not persist if we have a different way to do it later. So I at least wanted to give it a once over, but if not, it's merged and it's available, or it will be in 4.7. There are, of course, other pull requests still in progress in here. As I've been saying, most of them are relatively small. The next one that I want to look at after I get the unset command done, hopefully today, is well, I might clean up some of the really tiny ones, but I wanted to revisit this one that Christian had suggested closing out and expecting to replace it. But the issue here being the misbehavior of the file template function when it doesn't have content in it. So I wanted to take a crack at that and see if this might not be that difficult to fix, but that's where my attention is going next. Um, Shane, I think you had said something about looking at uh, this one next. This is yours, right? Yeah. Have you had a chance to look at this and see whether this is in a state that you would want to try and get merged in or delay, or what are your thoughts on this one right now?
Probably not with, 4.7, but
Okay.
like I think it's fine. I think it works, but at the very least, there's some tests that are failing now that would need to be addressed. And then
Right.
I think it would be prudent to add tests to it to, verify the Xadder uh, functionality.
Yeah. Okay. I appreciate that. I think, there's other things that we could like go into detail on here, but that's most of what's going on with 4.7. Um, and I'll keep working on the command I'm working on, and we'll get more of these pull requests merged, and it'll come out soon here, hopefully. But any other comments or questions on the status of 4.7? All right. Then I will just speak briefly about, frankly, some thoughts I've been having. I don't like it when there's a tendency to be like, well, CIQ has been thinking this and the community's been thinking this is me. I've written down some notes and been talking about them with people at CIQ. That the main thing is that we have kind of built up quite the list of things that we have not been willing to that we've just always marked as like, it's a preview. It works and people are using it, but it's not final. And so the main thing I want to see for a Werewolf V5 that we would do this and we would be willing to make some breaking changes and call it all good and V5 and move forward. Um, are these things here in the list? One is something that came up. I forget if it was on Slack or on an issue that someone submitted. I think it was on Slack. Someone was asking about DNS mask support and why it's there. Either that we finish the move to DNS mask or take responsibility for an internal DHCP server or something just to get us out of this split state. So that's the first thing on my list. The REST API that CIQ added uh, like a year ago now, it's about 80% there, but there's 20% of functionality that we need to go back and actually finish. It's mostly about power management. We don't have the ability to turn nodes on and off, that kind of thing with the REST API. So finish that. I have some thoughts about what it looks like to finalize our support for two-stage boot, and that's largely about being able to manage the Dracket image inside of the OS image without having to shell into it and do it manually. So I'm imagining something like an image init command that lets you list the inits that are available inside of your image and then manage them and rebuild them with a proper command rather than having to do it by shelling in and running Dracket manually. We need testing around grub and make that like it's caveated in the documentation that it's a preview. It's probably fine, but we need to add some test cases for it and take the preview flag off of it. Same for disk provisioning and provision to disk. Collect whatever issues we have about it and call it real. And this might include putting ignition into the community images that we publish for Rocky 8. I don't remember if it's there in Rocky 9 or not. It certainly can be in 9. There's packages for it, but it might not already be installed. So a little bit of cleanup there. Um, Secure Boot is something that was added at the same time as Grub. Grub was for Secure Boot, and it works in some cases, but I don't think we have any testing for it. So again, mostly just about testing and then removing the "this is a tech preview" caveat from the docs. And then we've never quite called it image subscriptions, but one of the things that Christian has been working on is uh, read-only images that you could pull an image out of a registry into Werewolf and mark it read-only with the purpose of then being able to automatically or automatedly at least um, pull down updates to that image over time and do that confidently since you know that it's not going to overwrite any local changes because it was read-only. So that's something that I think would be really cool to have in a V5 that you could say this image is getting its source from that place up there, and then it would speak better for the kind of CI/CD pipeline workflow that we talk about with Werewolf, that you can build your node images in a CI/CD pipeline and put them in a registry and then just pull them into Werewolf and use them. That would be just one step easier if you were able to automatically pull those down into Werewolf over time without having to pull into a separate node and then move some nodes over to it. Or sorry, pull into a separate image name and move nodes over to it. You could just update it in place. Leading into that, I have collected a list of things that I think would be cool to do on the way to V5. The biggest one is probably splitting host overlays like we have with regular runtime and system overlays. This is something we've been talking about quite a bit, in, at least I guess in this meeting, that we want the ability to have like per overlays for each service that you're managing with Werewolf and make that easier to override, easier to customize. And then the kind of second biggest thing is I would really, really, really like to fix the problems with single stage booting. And I expect Jeremy would be opinionated here that we should just go straight to EFI boot and ignore all of this. But I've one more theory for a way to fix this, that if we split the CPIO that we build for the single stage image into multiple parts, that we wouldn't have this problem. And so if we have like a 10 gig image and we split it into a bunch of half gig CPIOs, that we might not have the memory fragmentation issue because it doesn't have to find one big contiguous memory space for all of them. That is a theory that I came across that I just haven't had a chance to check. The rest of these are relatively minor, but things that I think would be good to do on the way to a V5, where this would be the cutoff. So there's no development behind this right now. I'm trying to get development resources kind of within CIQ towards this, but we always want to work. We don't want to work in isolation from the community. So I present it here for thoughts and feedback, and certainly because of our attendance today, I'll be bringing it up again in the next meeting as well. But for the people that are here, how does this look? What do you think? Do you have any feedback or questions or complaints about this as an initial idea?
Did we not already move to DNS mask completely?
We have it as so Rocky 10 supports it by default. Sorry, when we build Werewolf packages for Rocky 10, we are using DNS mask by default. But I am suggesting that we just move to it as default for everything and remove the ISC DHCP support in a Werewolf 5.
Lisa, my big request is there's certain features in Werewolf I want to when I'm running it, I don't want to get rid I want to for my instance of Werewolf, I would like to be able to depop features and add additional features without having to go and write new code for it. That is, I don't want to have to write integrated code. This is gets into the thing. I need to be able to actually have. I would like to see Werewolf 5 have a plugin architecture.
Can you give, I know we've talked about this before,
Yeah,
obviously. Can you give a concrete example of a specific feature that you think doesn't belong just in Werewolf, but that you would like to add as a plugin so that we can
Luster,
have like a point of reference for the
Luster
kinds of
configuration,
things
for
that should be
example.
supported?
Like I want to add Luster, right? I'm going to need configuration options. There's a bunch of other stuff that around it. It's very similar like NFS, for example, but it's not NFS. It has its own config. NFS 4, for example, not fully supported yet, but that's a different thing. But um, it gives me the ability to basically have a block, which I could do kind of now in tags, but some additional setup as necessary. For example, um, with Luster, I'm going to have potentially probably not host. Let me think about this. I want to add Luster config. I wanted to add NFS4 config. I've wanted Crony config for a while. You're adding Crony config, but that's the kind of thing, right? I would like to be able to have it available as an add-on. But
So,
let's say I want to add other things. I should be able to easily write a simple module that Werewolf can pull in with that it automatically extends the configuration options to the nodes and Werewolf conf files, as well as provide any additional pieces that are needed.
so when you say Lustre support, let's drill into
Yeah.
that for a moment.
Okay.
Are you talking about just the ability to configure the compute nodes to mount and use Lustre, or are you
Right.
talking about like the Werewolf server is a Lustre server somehow?
Uh, no, the head node would not be, but I want to be able to configure compute nodes to be Lustre. And in this case, they might be all the compute nodes will be Lustre clients, and some of them may be Lustre servers.
Okay. Um, and what is missing in your ability to do that with the resource support, like the ability to find like nested, arbitrarily nested configuration, and then implementing that with an overlay?
I can do that now. It's just not, like I said, it's not. I would say I can manually go in and do pretty much everything with Werewolf if I want to generate a bunch of tags for it.
Well, it's
But I
it's
don't
better than
want,
just a bunch of tags though, because
yeah,
now you can have like data structures for it.
right. And that's what I'm looking, and it would be nice to be able to. Now you're saying, hold on, I can put in my own data structures within, right now, I can put in my own
Yeah.
data structures.
Yeah, so a resource is it's like a tag, but its value is a map of anything to anything. So you can have arbitrarily nested data in there. Now, what is definitely true, and this is where here in better resource editing, is that right now the only way to update those is with wwctl node or profile edit, and you edit the YAML directly. And so we need a better kind of command line experience for updating those.
Yeah,
Um,
that's another that was one of my other thoughts is maybe a little bit of rehash on the set side.
yeah,
We have a ton of options, and it might actually start becoming easier instead of having a whole bunch of minus options. A couple of the popular ones as single options, and then everything else I can put in. I want this, and I want this value. Similar to the
yeah.
way we do tags now, but in a nice, clean format.
I think maybe audit and update wwctl is probably a good thing to have on that
Yeah,
list as well.
yeah.
I,
But the
I had that
set.
on my internal list. I just didn't hadn't distilled it here.
Yeah, node and profile set are a bit unwieldy now, and the
Yeah.
more stuff we add, the more unwieldy it gets.
Yep.
Uh, but I had some ideas about how to make it simple, and
Okay.
more importantly, I like everything to be kind of intuitive on on how it works.
Yep.
But
Anything?
yes, I'll have to look at the resource side. But when I look at plugins, I'm thinking it's a resource add-in combined with a set of overlays and anything else that might be needed. But it's all kind of in a block. of.
Something I've been imagining is that overlays should be able to publish within themselves. So within CIQ at least, like we
Mhm.
publish some overlays as separate packages, right? And so
Yeah.
you install an RPM and you get something in user share where or user lib werewolf or something,
Hmm.
wherever it goes. And you get your root FS. I've imagined that there should be another directory in there that says what kinds of uh, resources it expects to consume, and that could be introspected by the command line to say, I want to define a resource like what that luster overlay is asking for. And that'd probably get pretty close to what you're asking for a plugin experience where you can install this package, which provides overlays for configuring luster, but then also makes it really easy to define the metadata that it's looking for in order to get that overlay to do what it should do.
And then take all the plugins we have and pull them out of Werewolf source, and let's have a parallel repo for plugins. And
We
do you
have one.
can,
It just doesn't have anything in it yet.
yeah, which exactly, and that way it's not, it doesn't ship necessarily with Werewolf. Werewolf is a relatively compact
Yeah.
program that I can add to it. By the way, you were asking the other thing that we were looking for, which is NFS 4.
So you
Um,
can do NFS 4 now. That's
okay,
we redid NFS support in 4.5, I think, maybe 4.6, where
okay.
we separated the server from the client, and you can do all of that now. There's
Right. So if
no
I want to
blockers
set
there.
up okay, that's what I'm wondering. If I have, let's say I want to put in NFS Ganesha on my head node, for
Yeah,
example, and I'm going to
so
have some, so there is a
the
host, so the resource side for the nodes, there is something in the Werewolf file for the head node?
Yeah, so there's still an NFS server block for configuring the NFS server on the Werewolf server in the werewolf.conf. And I think I guess I don't know if that sets up 3 or 4 server by default. That is your request there to be able to configure Ganesha instead of the in kernel server.
It's just
That's
stuff,
some
right?
that's
Uh,
something that would be fixed by this here, that you would be able to have a separate overlay that configures Ganesha instead of
exactly.
the
But
in-kernel one.
in the packet, when I'm talking about that little, modular packet, you have a resource set up for the nodes conf. You also
Yes.
have the resource portion that has to go in the Werewolf conf for the head node. Does that exist right now? If I need to configure the head node to do stuff. But you're right, you're saying that it's not there yet.
The head node portion will be enabled by this by allowing you
Okay.
to sub in different host overlays for the server. Right now, we do have the ability to mount arbitrary. So we introduced an FS tab overlay, and that's what we use now for doing the NFS client mounts. And that thing automatically looks at the configuration on the server, I think, to know what exists and what it can mount by default.
I was actually, you're crazy. I was coming in this meeting to ask the very specific question, because I'm using tags now for some extra information I need on the nodes. Where do I put the tags in for the host?
So,
Because I also need some extra tags for the host side too. That so
so
when
the server side doesn't have any tags support today.
okay, that was I think so it doesn't have resource support tag. Whatever
Correct.
happens on the node side, we need to replicate it on the
There's been
uh,
some discussion in the past of supporting having the Werewolf server be a node that is defined in the cluster that you can apply
mhm.
stuff to, and that's probably the right way to do that. That makes sense to me anyway. But yeah, there's no tag or resource support on the host, and that would make more sense again when we have split overlays, and then we would have the ability to, or we would have a demand for overlays that would read from arbitrary tags and would read from
Right.
arbitrary resources.
And the werewolf file would have to have its own resource
Right.
tag. Okay. Okay. Thank you.
Hmm.
I'm being asked to do a lot of very weird stuff now with werewolf. I'm kind of in that John's old position of, I've got all of this stuff I need to do. I have werewolf. I don't want to have a bunch of different
Yeah.
applications. I want it all running out of this.
Well, we're going out of our way to break this functionality so that you can't go down that dark path that he was down. But otherwise,
No, I'm fine. I think hybridization was the old solution that would cover a lot of that.
yeah.
Because it seems to me that most of the issues we're having with the single overlays is file size.
Okay.
Or not single, sorry, single image boot has been the file size issue.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Single overlays is that there
So-
has been functionality to pull single file, well, to ask for a single overlay rather than the bundled overlay image that your node is configured for. And so John was previously using that, and he had like out of band agents that were running and pulling individual overlays and applying them out of band. And so with that use case gone, we're removing that functionality, and you're just doing it the way we document it now.
That's great combined with building overlays and sending them on the fly instead of
Yeah.
having me run the build command.
Yes, that is something I think I have here in this. Yeah, automatic yeah, automatic werewolf overlay rebuilds. What I have written up for this is that the we should check the timestamp of the overlay image against the timestamp of nodes.conf and werewolf.conf. And if nodes.conf or werewolf.conf are newer, it should just rebuild it. And then you would never have to do it ever again.
I was talking about actually build the overlays as a system that's nodes booting.
Well, the problem with that is that then you have a storm issue. And so you don't like one of the benefits to the werewolf architecture right now is that it's actually really, really lightweight when the node is booting. So you don't need that beefy of a server to boot a huge system because
Okay.
all it's doing is serving flat files. But effectively, it's doing what you're saying. It's just treating it as a cache and then invalidating the cache if the config has updated.
Okay.
All right. Anything else we should discuss before we call this somewhat shorter and abbreviated meeting? All right. Well, thank you all for being here, and I hope to see you in another couple of weeks. Let me actually check on that date for us to verify it's not like a weird fifth week month. Oh, maybe it is. So yes, the next one is scheduled for the 6th, not the 22nd. Oh wait, no, the 22nd would just be next week. Okay, so the next one is scheduled for the 6th,
Yeah.
which who knows what state I'll be in because I will have just come back from an intercontinental trip and will have done a lot of flying. We'll see. Maybe I'll ask one of our absentee TSC members to run that meeting for me. But
Is it Hamburg again this year?
well, so that's ISC. That's later. I
Oh,
have a different unrelated a CIQ trip that I'm taking that yeah, I'm busy prepping for. But yes, ISC is in Hamburg, and I'll be at that as well. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Have a great day.
thank you.